Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I am Roshan Jaswal, co founder of InsuredMine, a software platform with CRM, sales and marketing automation, designed and developed only for insurance industry. For those of you just joining us, welcome. A recorded session of this webinar will be available on InsuredMine website.
As we will be talking about organizing for the future, the agencies of 2021. And what does that mean is, what are some of the core things that agencies should be working towards in alignment of building their processes? And we will dive deeper into each of those segments as we continue to start. But just start by welcoming everybody. I'm very excited to see such a good turnout today. So we'll get started here in a minute. So just to give you guys a perspective of InsuredMine, what it does and what we are here helping agencies solve one of their core problems is about sales CRM marketing automation. It's an add-on to an agency management system, which means it complements the agency management system in a way that some of the functionality may not be there, but it augments, but purely from a sales and marketing and automation perspective. And that has been our strength, and that's how we have been helping now thousands of users trying to automate their sales and marketing process. And we will dive deeper today into an agency of 2021, how they should be focused on that. So it has 4 core components in the product. So we'll give you a quick overview of what it does, and then we'll dive into the topic. It has what we call a SEAM, SEAM, which is Sales, Engagement, Analytics, and Mobility. And the reason we call it SEAM is because these are the 4 core pillars that we believe needs to come together along with the agency management system to help agencies drive most value through growth and through service. And as you can see, the sale itself cannot do everything that they need to sustain the growth. It needs to make sure it engages with the client, it serves them well. And how do they know that? By understanding their own data, if it is in the upward trend or the downward trend, and several other aspects of it. We'll talk about some of those today, but the core will not be to focus on the analytics, but to talk on the automation and the flow around the 7 processes. So just to give you a sneak peek into what a pipeline should look like for an agency. When they are looking at a pipeline of retention, it should be about what is open, what is in process, pending, or renewed. Whereas when they are looking at a sales process, it should include something like, a lead is coming in, how they're quoting that lead, how they're following up on that lead, and how they're closing that lead. We'll talk that specific process in much more detail with a lot more content. By the way, I have a wonderful surprise for all of you attending this webinar today. If you stay to the end, there will be a wonderful package and that I will be sharing with all of you for your time to this webinar, and that will give you literally close to 60 plus webinar email templates that you can use right off the bat with your within your agency. So what does engagement means? Engagement is about communicating with your clients, but in a much more structured and strategic way. It also means understanding their response and then responding and reacting to it, which means you have to understand the analytics. So that's what one of the core things InsuredMine does is bring all your contacts from agency management system, helps you segment that. We'll talk about segmentation in a bit. And then build much more focused communication. And that communication can be through an email, through text messages, it can be through a voicemail, through phone calls, several other aspects that you can plug in through handwritten cards. How do you plug all of these pieces together to build your comprehensive communication plan. And analytics, as we say, you cannot measure it, manage it if you cannot measure it. So it's very important that you spend time understanding your agency data. That will tell you how well your agency is doing, how well each of your producers are doing, how well the CSRs are doing, how well each of your clients have been responding to your communication, to your approach, to your reach out, how concentrated your clients are in a particular geography, or is it what kind of policies you're writing, what kind of carriers you're using to write. All that data is right in front of you with all the policies you have written till date, and that will give you enough gunpowder to decide what you want to do in 2021. And then last but not the least is the mobile app is about giving yourself the ability to connect with your policyholders, be in their pocket, literally. So when you send a message, he does not need to log into a computer to get that ID card. He does not need to do something different to be engaged with you. So it's very important is to build that relation, but give him that ability to engage with you. So with that, let me ask you a question and roll out a quick poll to each of you, and want to hear what you guys are using in terms of a CRM. Well, good to see it's kind of being responded pretty quickly. Hopefully we can have an answer in next 10 seconds. A lot of folks have already voted. I can still see there are a few more. If you have not voted, I would encourage you guys to vote. All right. I'm glad to see around 60% of the people have or are using some kind of a CRM. Well, technically it's 53%. 65% have voted. And that number is better than some of our previous polls that we have done. We have seen somewhere between 25 to 40%. So this audience is, a bit, I would say, advanced in that way that we are starting to see some CRM utility. Let me close this poll here. All right. So now the core of understanding why a CRM, because a lot of the things we will be talking is based on CRM. So what do we think from these three topics here will be different in 2021? Workforce, product, or delivery? So we have invested significantly for you all is to focus on the third aspect, which is delivery. A lot of the insurance agencies are delivering the same product. How they are coaching their workforce is different. The culture they are creating is different. But what is defining a winner to everyone else is the delivery of the product. How we are engaging, how we are continuing to engage, and how we are closing, and then how we are serving after that delivery is done or that closing is done. And so we will focus a lot on our discussion around the delivery. So when we are looking into the 2021 period, it's important to consider three core elements in that, which is number one is availability of online capabilities. It's a very generic term when we say being available online. What does that mean? First of all, if you look few years back, agencies were not designed to do any business online. Even their agency management system was offline. It was on the computers, which was not connected online through cloud or anything. It was all per location. So they could not move if they have to go to another place and work because the AMS was installed on a particular computer in a particular office. So having that ability to be able to work from different locations, be able to manage their business from somewhere else is very important from a workforce perspective. But similarly, be able to work with your client and they can do the same is equally important. What does that mean? It means, when you are sending them a form, it better be a digital form. And that form can go through an email, it can go through a text message, it can be an online form that they can fill. So I think that is one of the core things, is the base understanding that whether agency employee or agency's client both needs to engage and collaborate and be able to do business online. So I think everything we do going forward will have a deep impact, which has already been, the way we have progressed in terms of digitization. That has been one of the core things. Number two, ease of navigating online customer journey. This is a lot of heavy words when we're talking about navigating customer journey. It's difficult to say what does that actually mean, right? But let's segment that. The customer journey starts when a stranger reaches out to you about his need of insurance, or someone you have been marketing and now they realize the services you offer would meet the need they have. All of that will trigger off that customer journey. The moment you have the name or an identity of a person that you can capture and start working, that's where the journey starts. And the interesting part is that journey never ends. Even they are not your customer, they're still in your system. You will nurture that to bring them back. That's a win back strategy. So ease of navigating that customer journey, where they are, what they can do, what you can do, how. So we'll talk about some of those aspects going further. And the third one, which is very important, is seamlessly integrating your sales and support and advice capability. So when we talk about digitization, we spend a lot of time looking at, doing a lot of mundane things. And we enjoy that, because sometimes it's a brain dead activity. So we don't have to think about it, just keep doing. Like, for example, if you need to send some kind of endorsement updates you have to do and you're doing it, keep doing it. You got 20 of those. There's a form you're filling, updating, and just sending it out. It's literally a brainless job because it's copy paste and update, copy paste update kind of a thing. But then a lot of those work today can be automated, can be made self-service by the clients to do it all by themselves. So what are those capabilities that we have built within our organization? So a lot can be automated, and only unique work where it needs human intervention, where it's more about making judgment, whether it's more about advice, that kind of work is staying with human capabilities to be leveraged. So we talk about Pareto a lot of times in this third bullet, which is 80% of the work can be automated, which is high volume, low value. And 20% of the work, which is high value, low volume, needs to be more advisory. So how do we integrate and plug these pieces together, whether it's advisory, whether it's automated, individual doing it versus system doing it? How do we bring it all together is another element. So if you look at these three post-Korean digital age thinking, these three principles will play a very important role of how do you graduate and bring these three capabilities in your organization, which is making sure everything is online, making sure the customer journey is easy to navigate from one point to another, and then within your operations, how they are seamless between advisory and automated work. So we will start talking about that in terms of customer journey. Here is 7 stage that we believe when you're looking at a client needs to go through. 5 are in a sequence, 2 are kind of a follow-up because they fall out of the sequence and then they come back and they attach at lead nurture and sales funnel. So this, I think, is a very important image that all of you should even take a screenshot. I'll share this, but I would encourage you all to take a screenshot, because this is where everything lies in. This is the summary, the crux of the presentation, because this is where we go deep. So let's talk about what are these stages. Lead capture is where everything starts, right? And it's the top of the funnel, everything is funneling in. Lead nurture is how we are working on those. Sales funnel is now that lead has been what we call as sales qualified lead, SQL, is stage 3. Now they have shown interest that, I want to do business with you. Before that, maybe you have shown interest and they have kind of indicated something. Or, you got a whole list, you bought, you went to farmer's market, everybody showed up and they gave your name, their names, and a lot of things happen, right? How you get the names. But now this is where at the third stage, things starts getting serious about, okay, these guys really want it. So I think that is where we start looking at the sales funnel. Fourth one is about onboarding. So what is onboarding? It is where now the deal is closed. Now we want to bring them in. And while we are bringing them in, this is the best moment when we should maximize about how we make them feel, how they experience your organization. Because if you build upon this really well, this is gonna build that experience for him that will go a very long way. And then comes the retention. What is retention? It is a period of the policy. It can be the first, can be the 6 months or a year, and then that's where it starts, right? And in that period, what are you doing? What are the things you're talking to him? Whether you're talking about the upsell, whether you're talking about the cross sell, whether you're talking about him becoming an advocate for your agency and talking to others, referrals. And so a lot of things are happening in that stage 5. Then if that after that retention or the policy period is over, usually that goes to number 7, which is, now they're into kind of a sales funnel, but not the sales funnel, because it's just a renewal. We presume renewals are easy, but we know it is not. Some of the agencies we talk, they are in lower 80s, but some of the agencies we work with, they are in the higher 90s. And I know everybody would love to be in higher 90s. But what do we do to cover that gap from lower 80s to higher 90s? So those are some of the things we will look at, how that renewal. And then is the win back. Win back, as I say, the customer journey never ends, because we look them back into nurturing them, and obviously with an hope someday we will win back their business and bring them back into our funnel and into our clientele. Hope this gives you a good quick summary of where we start on this customer journey. But before we dive into this lead capture and down, I want to take a moment, digress for a second, and talk about a difference between a contact management and a deal management. What are some of the things you should be doing the moment you get a contact? And this will also be a difference between your stage 1 and stage 3 that we talked about, right? Contact management will happen at the top of the funnel, and deal management will happen at your, what we call as SQL, right? Sales qualified lead, which is happening at your sales level. So when we're talking about the contact management, the capture, what are you trying to do at that point of time? Your goal at that point of time is to capture contact detail in as much detailed way as possible, but with as little effort. And how do we do that? That's what that element of being digitized, that's what that element of being online means. And we'll talk about some of those in a bit in our stage 1. Number 2 is, when you're talking about contact management, always bring attributes. How do you know this guy? What do you know about this guy? What defines this guy is different from others? Whether it's he's a uh, alumni, or whether he's you know him through Rotary Club. Do you know him because you met him at the farmers market? Whether this guy is a veteran. What other attributes I know about this guy which gives him that special reason to be known. And same thing will, once we start segmenting and start prospecting, that's when it's important to dive deeper into dispositions. And I'll talk about dispositions as we go to the next slide. Also remember, because you have just captured this contact detail, you may not know his intent. Whether he's really looking to buy. Once we start having that prospecting, once we start doing the discovery call, we will learn more. But at this time, we may not have that kind of a clarity. And it's important now that you start establishing that engagement or that contact with him, whether it's through email, through phone or voicemail or text, whatever it can be. And if not, get him going on an automated drip. And if everything is set up, you move him to the deal board. But contrary to that is on the deal management side, it can be the deal is happening for a new client, or it can be for a new business, or it's a renewal. But what is the goal here? The goal is to close the deal and to move them from one stage to another to accomplish that. There will be very specific that we will talk about in the deal flow, at what stage, what kind of campaign you should be running, and how can we do that. So we'll go into so the reason I'm trying to put this out here is to say, where does that engagement starts? Do we do it at the contact management level, or do we do it at the deal management level? A deal does not become a deal until there is an intent. Until there is that what we call as, remember the word SQL, sales qualified lead. Unless we have received that intent from the guy, you should not put him in your deals. He's just a contact. Nurture him. So it's very important. But if you are doing cold callings or any kind of mass prospecting, that you can do at the contact management, because you are still cold calling to learn the intent. And so that's the difference. A lot of people, kind of get confused at this, and I want to bring that up in the beginning. So now let's go into talking about the lead capture. So how do we capture the leads? There are numerous way of capturing that, whether it's through your website, through Excel sheet that you have received, or you can through Zapier's, or through you're buying it from a lead source, or you're buying it from several others, from Facebook, from social media. If you are heavy on other social media, like I was talking to another live guy, and they are pretty big on some of the other forums, and how they are getting that the leads. So, or it is through the referrals. A lot of agencies we work with, they say we don't do anything above but just pure referrals. So you got to understand your strength and where you guys are getting a lot. It just refreshed itself, so let me pull it up one more time. So it depends on you guys what works best for your agency in terms of referral. Okay, so but do not forget, the goal of lead capture is to just capture the contact information into your CRM. So if you do not have a CRM, obviously a lot of you guys may be using your agency management system or an Excel or a sticky note. But I would highly encourage, when we see that 53%, that tells me, half the world is not even thinking about it, how important it is to have a CRM and to manage all this contact to start with. So that is number one goal for all of you, is to capture that data. So giving you some examples of, where is your next lead coming from, create a high catching, easy to use, quick to load website. It's very important that you build a website today which looks really, really good. Because as you know, today people will not judge by your office because you literally do not have an office anymore. Everybody's working from home. They will judge you by your website. So it's very important that you build one, and if you do not, get one done today, it is very cheap. It's 20-30 bucks. You can get one really good ones. Second is, having code forms. Back in the days, we used to call it, code sheets, all on the desk. Somebody comes in and fill in that form. Digitize that, get that online so people can come and fill in that detail. And so it's very important to capture that kind of an information to start with. What other ways? We talked about Zapier, right? So all the social media, you can zap in and use the Zapier. It's a newer concept of Zapier. I'm sure several of you may not have used, or, InsuredMine is very well versed with how we use Zapier. Several of our clients are using it in a very, intensive way. So if you want to learn more, dive in with us and we will be happy to take you on that Zapier ride. But any of these social media, you can connect through Zapier to feed in that lead automatically to InsuredMine or several other CRM tools that you may be leveraging today. Or literally just upload a list, that you get from building it over the period of time. Just manage it through that. But the point I'm trying to drive is these are different sources where you will be getting your next lead coming in from. And so make sure there is a way, because if you remember what I told in this first part is your goal is to get that lead contact detail as much as possible and as quickly you can upload and sync. So that is important. Now, here is an interesting stats. 50% of the leads are qualified but immediately not ready to buy something from you. So that's why when I was talking about the contact management and deal management, so as you can see, half will not even go to deal management. What do you do for them? Those who are not going to the deal management, your goal is to nurture them. Because if they are not ready today, they will be ready tomorrow. And by nurturing them, you are building that relation, you are building that trust. And until that is built, people do not have that kind of an intensity and inclination to do business with you. So it's important is to build that kind of a relationship, and so they can come and do more business with you. Three things to care about, to start with when you're talking about lead nurture is make sure you have qualified those contacts, need what they want, gauge their interest, how much they're interested in having or buying that policy from you. And then capture the urgency, because that urgency will determine how much commitment you need to put, because whether it's going to be done immediately or not. Once you get that, I think there's three core components that you need to care about after that, which is, we talked about segmentation. What is segmentation? And in the next slide, you will see more details, is to slice and dice your contact through, source, through dispositions, through X dates, by the line of business, tax, or whatever you want to call it. Then start prospecting. And then in prospecting also, whether you're doing a call prospecting, whether you're doing a drip prospecting, how we will go through those content and templates in a bit. Third is to build your content plan. In the third part, you can see there is active nurture and passive nurture. Active nurture is what starts immediately. Get them going immediately in terms of, welcoming them, introducing your agency to them, so they get an exposure into who you are, what you do, and why they should be doing business with you. Whereas passive nurture is now they're in your system. They're not going anywhere until they decide and unsubscribe you, which does not happen that often unless you're pushing it too hard with one email every day, which I do not recommend. But build some kind of a communication about your organization. It can be a bi-weekly or a monthly or some kind of, we have some of our clients who are creating wonderful videos. I love, Peak Insurance, in particular from North Carolina. I love the videos they are creating. So much value for their clients and their prospects. Remember, the goal is to introduce your prospect to your brand and offerings and learn about them. This is very important. I put a lot of thought in making sure not only I put in these contents, I write these goals, because that goal will make sure you do not deviate from the path and will make sure you understand the scope of each of these stages. The goal of lead nurture is not to sell. So do not, when you're creating this content, don't make it salesy. Make it for value. Make it to get them engaged, to get them excited about you. So segmentation. So what is a segmentation? This is some of the screenshots we pulled from InsuredMine platform. But what it does, it gives you a perspective of how we are segmenting. Whether it's segmenting through a list source, whether it's segmenting by insurance type, whether it's a personal insurance, commercial, life, health, benefits, it depends on what it is, or a policy category. Are we writing a particular kind of a policy? X dates, dispositions. So all of these will help you slice and dice that data so you can be more targeted and specific. Here is the interesting stats. Sending message to specific segments can increase customer engagement by 200%. And that is significant, because if that happens, that is telling you that now whatever you used to send, double that audience you just by segmenting. So I think it's very important that we all pay attention in developing that strategy around customer segmentation. And I'll tell you from my experience, when we are talking with a lot of these agencies, this has been kind of a very foreign concept to them. Why should we segment? Just send it to everybody. But as we continue to engage with them, as we continue to coach them on segmentation, we are starting to see people are not only leveraging that concept, but also starting to see a very good outcome based on that. Now, this is a very important and interesting slide. I would say pay attention to this if you have not been so far, is prospecting. The flow is very important. This takes us back to the stage one, where we talked about how are we capturing leads, adding into the contacts, and then connecting it via phone. This is a prospecting for phone. A lot of you guys have guys who are calling. So this is important, that do not move things into your sales funnel yet. Have them in your contact. And from contact, when you're calling them, just update the disposition, so you do not end up cluttering your deal board. And that disposition, here is a wonderful sample of the disposition that we personally use at InsuredMine. When we are talking to an agency and they until they are a discovery call or schedule a demo, we are not moving them from contact to our deal board. And once we move them, once they start responding, that's when it starts transitioning. Now remember, this is a part of our nurturing process, right? And why are we not moving them? Because we have not yet confirmed their intent and urgency. And once that happens, remember the goal of this segment is to get to connect. If we have connected, now we should start looking at, okay, get that discovery call, understand them, what they need. Scheduling a demo is for us. For you guys is to understand them, what policy they need. So here is a wonderful email sequence of lead in. you did prospecting when a contact came in through the call, or you can just set up a wonderful sequence of drips. Here is an example of 5 email and 3 text messages that goes in the next 30 days to the contact we just added to the system. I told you all in the beginning, now 35 minutes down the webinar, I'm gonna reveal this. As I said, there are templates. So each of these email icon that you see, each of them has a template behind them. And I am going to offer that to all of you today. So you don't need to sit and think about what should be the content of that email. Go home, just build your flow, start using them immediately. And that flow is also defined. What should be the email subject line, what should be the content, when it should go, day 1, day 3, day 5. So I hope you will enjoy that. So talking about the prospect active drip, this is, we talked about the nurture part is active versus inactive. This is the active part, where in the next 30 days, you are trying to, indoctrinate them with everything your agency stands for. Tell them everything, why it is great to do business with you. All right, next is the inactive part. Is there will be dates and triggers that is built into the system with automation. You want to make sure that those slide in, like birthdays. Happy birthday, put it out, let them know, make them feel special that you are sending them a birthday card or just an email. Same thing with any other holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, any other events that you want to pick, their anniversaries, or in X dates even. So pick these out, push it out as an automation, but over the period of time, this helps build a good relation with the agency. Now, we will talk about the third stage, which is sales funnel. Sales funnel has a lot to be, because this is the most important thing, right? We brought in the lead through the lead capture process, we nurture them, now they are ready to sell. What is the goal? Is to win the deal. But to win the deal, there's a lot that needs to happen. We want to make sure there is a well-defined process, a winning strategy that helps us win. It includes checklist. It includes code sheet, which is the forms that we send to them. It includes automation of drip campaigns, templates, tasks, and any notifications. How are we putting those all together so we can build that sales funnel? To start with, I'm giving you a 4-stage sales funnel, which is first contact, then your quoting, and then your proposal and sold. Again, there are different versions I'll show you, and this is just one way. But what is key here is the checklist. For example, if you look at the bottom one, the checklist that we have in that stage, first contact, is to create a deal card, meeting scheduled, set due date, automation on follow-up until connected. So that 4 items needs to be checked before we move them to the next stage. And the goal of that stage was connect. If we have connected, we have accomplished the goal, we move them to the next one. Quoting is to submit the quote is the goal. And whether we are reviewing the intake forms, submit that quote to the carrier, email automation to prospect every 3 days while we are waiting on the quote. But as soon as we quote them, the goal is accomplished. Third is, about issuing the proposal. That goal needs to be accomplished. So these are all the different checklists that needs to be completed. And if we are following that all the time, this will bring not only consistency, it will also build a winning recipe for you. I'm providing today to all of you a wonderful set of checklists for different stages. Excuse me. So I'll let you just take a glimpse here. So as you can see in the sales new lead checklist, or in the client onboarding checklist, or personal auto quote, renewal service, new business onboarding. So while we go through these different stages, you can leverage this checklist to be able to use it in different ways. Hope you will have a good time trying to leverage this and use it in your current process. Not only the checklist, but other list is also you will be needing. For example, when you are winning or losing a deal, you need to know the reasons for winning and losing, especially for losing. Why did you lose that business? Whether it was price, whether it was our agency's response in doing things, or the client was not responding. It could be anything. But over the period of time, you will learn enough through this insight that you are gathering to understand what you need to work on to fix that. Next is we will go through, so we talked about 4 or 5 stages, lead in, gather info, quoted, bind, or, win or loss. So lead in is usually, we have already talked about in the lead nurture stage. These are the 5 email and 3 text messages that we can start. So sometimes what happens, you may get a contact and he is ready to get started, right? So you directly put them in contact, but you also put them in the deal sales funnel. And so when you put them in the sales funnel, you start this automation if you have not already started, which is to get them warmed up to the agency. But you will stop them as they continue to move to the next stage. So what is the next stage, which is gather info? Even this one is filled with 5 email and 3 text messages, because at this point of time, you're starting to engage with them in a much more frequent basis and trying to make sure they have a very clear communication path with you all. And one thing you have noticed, I'm sure, is the use of text messages. I cannot put enough emphasis on the fact that if you are not using text messages in your current business process, you are at least losing single-digit growth. At least, on a higher single-digit growth. Why? Because that relationship has not gone personal yet. So it's very important, if you have not started doing it, start doing it today, right after this webinar. So it's that important. Third one is the quoted follow-up. And this sequence is to talk about, again, all of these email, the icons that you're seeing is just not icons. There is email right behind it. So we'll go through some of them. This is a 100-slide presentation. That's why I'm not going to open each of them. The sequence is built with a lot of thought in it, which should go which day. So it's very important that you dig into each of them and look at what are we doing in that quote follow-up stage. What kind of email needs to go on day 3, day 5, and 9. And same thing is with the deal one. So the deal one is again the overlap between the last stage in your deal close or your onboarding. Onboarding also starts by welcoming them, whereas winning also closes by welcoming and closing the deal. So this will overlap with your next stage. But if you lose them, it is also important is to just don't drop the ball, put them into a lost sequence. So we have built something and we can come back to that left triggers that we have in the system now for X dates or the lost business. This should not be left hanging and dry at that point. So onboarding. Onboarding has 4 components in it. Already that email might have been sent at the deal one stage from the sales funnel. But if that is not done, you start your onboarding. I can't tell you guys how important is onboarding. If you think selling is a hard work, I think it is equally important is to build upon that relationship because you have just won a deal. Because once you do that, it will significantly improve your future prospecting with that guy. So build that drip, but there are several other things. For example, Never forget to request referrals or request Google reviews. And obviously, as if you all are starting to use mobile app, engage them on mobile app, because that will build the relation that you need. Use some of the checklists provided here. I gave you a lot of checklists in the beginning, but there are some onboarding specific checklists that you can use in terms of, for example, policy issuance for the personal home and auto. Save and upload policies, and save and upload declaration page or claims report page, deliver policy docs on templates. So there are several things that you can do. This is based on doing it to NowSearch or any other agency management system. Retention. So retention is the period while the policy is active. And this is very important that, during this period, you are talking to the client on the coverage weakness. You are talking to the clients on the add-on benefits and coverages like umbrella policy, life insurance, what additional policy you can sell them, what cross-sell, upsell you can bring, how can you bundle that package together for something more. There is templates for each of them, but if you look into the details, all the things that you need to do, and there are forms that you should create on your own. Again, there are some provided here as well that will help you accomplish some of these discussions. Sometimes we want to do that, but we do not have the content and the substance to follow that. So here is a wonderful series of email and the forms that will form that conversation that you need to have with them. And last but not sixth is the win back. Actually, it's the seventh one, I thought. Seventh one is actually the renewals. Yep. So win back is equally important. As I said, that we need to nurture them, and nurturing them over the period of time is, what are the communication we are sending them back. Day 1, day 15, day 30. So after that, you continue to build upon it. And renewals, you start that process 60 days before. Once you build that process, 60 minus 30 minus 15 minus 5, and a day after the policy is won, you send them a thank you or an onboarding welcome email about, hey, the policy is in the system. So let's take a step back. As we talked about these 7 processes, excuse me, from the point of lead capture, you see there is a whole continuum flow of lead capture to lead nurture to sales funnel to policy retention to renewals and win backs. Everything is connected. The process we are using, the emails we are using, the checklist we are using, when that sequence needs to happen, if you're putting all of these together with what we have provided, this is just packaging the entire agency in a way. There are a couple other elements we have not dived deeper today because of the time constraint. I know I'll not be able to cover them, which is on the service element and the mobile app. But there is way more that you can do with that as well. So with that, I want to take a pause and open it up for another 10-11 minutes that we have on questions. So feel free to jump in and ask questions if you have anything on these. I will unmute you all. So you can, I would encourage you all to write your question in the chat or in the Q&A. Okay. Kenny, are we notified if a prospect or a client unsubscribe? Of course, yes. There is an option where they can unsubscribe to marketing email, or they can unsubscribe to marketing email or text, or they can unsubscribe to the whole thing. So it's up to them which one they are unsubscribing, and that's how system will manage it accordingly. Good question. Any other question? let me take it back to this. I'm unmuting everybody here, so just in case if they have a question, you can ask. All right. Any other question on that? Let me take it back to the 7 stages. So, well, one thing I want to show you guys here is, so Kenny has a question here. Will we receive a copy of the webinar late to join? No problem, Kenny. Thanks for joining. Yes, I think everybody will be super mad if I do not share this, because this includes all the template, and I would love to share all of that with everybody out here on the call. So yes, we will be sharing the recording as well as this email sequence, because let me go through a couple of them just to give you guys a perspective. So we are talking about the lead-in stage. Here are your stages of lead-in with this 5 email on 3 text. We go through each of them, which will give you first email. Thank you for your inquiry. We write that entire email. And so you can just literally, we are giving you permission to just copy, paste, and use it to your advantage. Second one will be a text message. Use that introduction. Here is the text message. Third one is your email again. So you put it with your calendar link. So we also, with InsuredMine, there is a Calendly feature involved in it. So you can use that for that. Fourth one is again a text message. So just copy that. Fifth one is still interested if they are not responding. So you can go through that sequence of until the 28th day. And then comes in your gather info, which is your stage 2, which is nurturing them, right? Which has day 1, day 2, day 3, and then 3 texts and 7 and 8. So you have all the content built in that for the same as well. Then comes your quote follow-up stage. You have 5 emails and 2 text messages. Then is your want stage. This is a good one where we talk about all the winning, welcome to the agency. My commitment to you, just to build that brand awareness with them. An important benefit for you is that, we are available and things like that. So in case you have a claim, help them figure it out how they can help you. And then obviously, help others. So referrals. And then it's a lost stage, as we talk about, look at this cute little girl, she's not happy when nobody is happy when they lose business. But, build that sequence of 4 email that we talked about, send it to them, and then learn from them, why they end up not doing business, because it will help you build that insight that you need. And then renewal process, build the whole sequence, what other checklist you can add, what other questionnaires can you add to that, minus 60 day, minus 30, minus 5. So there is all that sequence that you will be needing. As I said, there are probably 60 plus email templates that we are adding to this that will go out. All right. I will open this up for another few minutes for any other question that anybody has. How easy it is to create a list? Wonderful question, Scott. It's very easy to create a list. Actually, when you create a contact, it literally creates a list by itself now, because you have already added those attributes. And so when you go to create a list, it will give you that attributes. So options, and you can, the moment you click one of those options, it will literally create that list for you then. And not only that, but if you can keep that list active in InsuredMine platform as you are continuing to use them, by, let's say you added a list with a particular label, and that label can be farmers market, as we were talking, so when you add one more contact to that list and add that label, it will automatically update that list because it's a live list. So we want to make sure there are a couple other questions here. Jennifer, are we able to updated list mass update? Yes, contacts can be updated. There are few fields that can be updated, but we are continuously working on several other processes and fields that can be updated as well. So, if you come across anything that you want to get updated, we are here to help and update those. Um, and then what's John's question is, what's the process to integrate InsuredMine to an agency and their agency management system? So, John, I presume that is associated with the PNC side. On PNC, some of the agency management system like Waterford's AMS 360, QQ Catalyst, NowCerts, Hawksoft, these are these are already integrated with InsuredMine, which means data is flowing back and forth, except Hawksoft that does one side. But these are all API driven integrations. So it's fairly simple. There is nothing you guys have to do. We just hook it up and it just flows like music, so it's all pretty smooth in that way. Your other question is, are we able to add as many custom fields as we want so that we can upload all leads info we receive? Yes, Jennifer, create your limitless fields that you want and be able to leverage and manage that from there. Oh, interesting questions. Yeah, people just want to do things differently, but I would highly encourage, try to not go too far with that custom fields, because the more you have, the more you have to think to manage about how do you go about it. If you stick it to few fields, focus on those, it will help you get your data better structured. So that's what we highly encourage. Well, it's good to see so much engagement and good to see such an pretty good list of audience today. So it's always good to have this kind of audience, and we have worked really hard in building this presentation, because I think it is something that over the period of time we have heard from a lot of agencies about. They have bits and pieces here and there, but nobody has this comprehensive 7-stage process and that clarity of what kind of a content checklist should go in with what kind of a sequence in each of them. So I thought this was a wonderful way to bring it all together. Yes, there is a flavor of InsuredMine because that's at the back of our mind how we use it. But if we really look at it from an InsuredMine perspective, there is so much more that the product offers, which has not been discussed. What has been discussed is purely looking the process perspective, that what that process needs to have. Otherwise, things like forms, mobile app, looking at from the perspective of how you are managing the entire automations, looking at opportunities of monoline, cross-sell. There are several other things that will typically make it a product demo. We didn't want it to go that route. We wanted to focus on process. And that is the whole idea. And I think everybody will really appreciate and be benefited from what we are offering today, from not only the product perspective, but from this presentation and webinar perspective. I hope to see you all continuously get engaged with us, and any other question after the webinar that we can answer, we'll be happy to answer, as well as share this presentation with you all. I'm looking forward to hear again. With that thought, thank you everyone for your time. We will connect again. If you have any question, you can reach out to me at roshan@insuredmind.com. And thank you all for your time.